All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm so excited to be welcoming today to my Shero Spotlight, a young lady that I've known since she was 15 years old. And we met in youth group. I, of course, was not 15 years old at the time. I was one of the youth leaders. That's a little joke there. I don't know if anybody got it. But at any rate, we met at the church. She and I had a great connection over music and over Jesus and just over things in life. She was such a great teenager and has grown up to be a wonderful young lady. And now she is a contemporary artist living here in Nashville, Tennessee. Please welcome as my Shero today, Chelsey Tucker.
Thank you for having me. This is a total full circle moment. You're right. I was 15 or younger, maybe even younger at the time. And we had an instant connection that has just continued throughout all these years. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I want to get started right in on the interview. You have always a lot to share, and you have such an interesting life, and your story of how you came to be a contemporary artist. And so I just thought we could start off by you telling the listeners a little bit about when it was that you painted your first painting. How did that happen for you?
So I painted my first, I'll go back and say it's still surreal to have me label myself or hear myself called a contemporary artist. Because growing up, I loved music, as you mentioned, and I loved to write, but I could never paint or draw or anything like that. That was never something that I excelled at. In fact, my husband and I joke that we don't play Pictionary together because it's like a for sure loss for him if we're on each other's team, because that was just not an artistic inclination that I ever had. So to hear myself and to identify myself as an artist is something that's surreal for me. So I started painting 3 years ago, and the circumstances around that were really challenging for me. But the reason I started painting is I lost my eyesight due to a rare autoimmune disease called neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorder.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
How did you find out that you had this autoimmune disease?
Well, when I was 21, I lost my eyesight in my left eye and was initially diagnosed with MS. And
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, yes. And then 10 years later, I had just repeat bouts of something called optic neuritis, which is where I would lose my eyesight. I began losing it in both eyes at the same time. And I had a doctor take a look at my case and say, this isn't typical for MS. I think it's something different. I think it's this neuromyelitis optica. Let's have you tested and see if that's it.
Okay.
And sure enough, and it was. And so it was after my fourth hospitalization for being completely blind that I realized this diagnosis had changed from MS to neuromyelitis optica, and that was actually last year in February when my diagnosis changed. I started painting though 3 years ago, and it was when I got home after one of these hospitalizations, and I was, if you can imagine, I was completely without vision, no color vision, and everything in my world had totally changed.
Of course.
And I was unable to, I couldn't reconcile what had happened, and I had such a hard time explaining to others, particularly my husband, what I was able to see. And he was such a saint during that time. He would take time to explain to me the colors and what our children's faces looked like.
That really struck me when you told me about that, and when I read that as well, somewhere in your bio or something you had written online about that you were afraid, like you hadn't taken the time to really lean in and note these things. And so I thought that was really interesting.
I was devastated because I think that, we take so much of our sight for granted. We don't really take time to absorb the things that are most important. So like, I remember my son's eyes. I could remember what colors they were, but I couldn't remember the details. And so I would ask my husband, Bob, like, what are the details of our son's eyes? And please tell me. about the details of the freckles on our daughter's face and the things that I just really wished I could recall.
Yes.
And he was, again, such a saint. He took so much time to really explain all of those things to me. And I would begin to visualize and try to imagine what those things looked like. And it made me feel like I was more connected, because I didn't have that sight. I didn't have to go by what my eyes could see. So I had to go by what I had remembered.
In your memory. Yeah.
Yes. And so it took about 8 months of remembering and imagining, and I began to get a little bit of my vision back. And I woke up one day, this is truly the timeline of how I started painting. I woke up one day, I rolled over, I looked at Bob and said, I'd like to paint something today. And
he said, good, because the kitchen needs some work.
Right? He's so confused because he knows my talent level in that department is 0. And at this point, though, I think I had been so distraught. I think any ounce of hope or excitement, he was willing to go along for the ride. So I said, I'd like to paint something. We went out to the craft store within the same 2 hours. I bought the cheapest canvas, the cheapest paint, like Crayola paintbrushes, like for
a kindergarten kid.
For a kindergarten kid. And I came home and I painted my first painting, which was a guitar. And the reason that was music is so important to me, but my oldest son is an amazing musician. And so I painted a guitar. It took me about an hour.
Wow.
And what I was most excited about is when I called Bob downstairs and showed him what I had done, he was able to recognize what it was.
Oh, and that's a good sign.
That was, for me, it felt like just another layer and level of connection.
Yeah.
So that was exciting.
It's just so cool that you were given that kind of bolt of creativity in that way, and then something that truly helps and heals other people, I think. Because
Absolutely.
I love your artwork, and I know you've had a lot of success with it, with having shows and selling your art. And then didn't you get involved with the organization that has to do with autoimmune diseases of the eye? What is that organization that you work with, and you did some public service announcements and that kind of thing for them? Isn't that true?
Yes, it is. So I am now an ambassador for several different programs, one of them being the Samara Foundation, which is a foundation that specifically focuses on bringing awareness to this specific disease. And I work with several different pharmaceutical companies doing the exact same thing, bringing awareness, spreading hope and positivity, and using my art as part of that story, which I just think is so incredible for me. It's cathartic to paint, but then to also be able to show others that definitely new things are possible.
Oh, yes. And I love your mantra. Tell everybody about your mantra.
You don't need sight to have a vision.
It's so beautiful.
Thank you so much. I think for me, at the place that I am in my life right now, I know that the things that I've gone through have been hard, but I never would have gotten to this place in my life had I not gone through everything that's brought me here to this place.
Right.
And realizing that even though life does not look really at all like I thought it would, it still doesn't mean that it can't be beautiful. And in my case, I'm just a firm believer that I think it's even more than I ever could have dreamed of.
Well, you are truly one of those people. I read something recently. If they polled 12 people, they said 5 would stick their head in the sand if there was a disaster or, something happened in their life that was just completely made their life a 180 like yours. And, and they said the 5 would freeze, 5 would stick their head in the sand, and 2 would figure it out and move forward. And you're definitely in that category because you really found a way, and it was obviously very healing to yourself. And then because you have such a great spirit about you, Chelsey, then people just grabbed onto that and they just kept going right with you down the road and, helping you spread your art and your story to all kinds of people, which I think is so great.
I do too. And it's kept me going, and it's just reinforced that purpose in my life that I really do feel called to share.
Yes.
and to be a light and to spread that. And if I can do that through art or through my message, I just feel so honored every day to be able to do that.
Oh, that's so great. Well, now tell us a little bit about your kids, about your family.
So my family is a beautiful mix of there's 7 of us. Can you just take a moment, let that soak in. I have 5 children.
It's amazing.
It is incredible, and I never again, life just does not, life right now does not look like anything I ever thought it would. But our children came to us via foster to adopt. So we fostered them all and we've adopted them all now. There's 5 total, and we are done.
And they are the luckiest kids.
We are the luckiest parents. I tell you what, they are incredible children. They range in age from 12 to 3. And there's just never a dull moment. So there's never a lack of inspiration around the house. And it just so happens that all 5 of them are creative.
I know you have told me that, and that is so amazing. And I was going to ask you, what do you do with your kids, to help them discover their own authenticity in regards to being creative people?
Well, I really think that creativity and emotional connection with yourself go hand in hand.
Yes.
And so we work very, very hard. We're very, very diligent with our children about feeling their emotions and allowing them to express themselves. So no emotion is off limits at our house. And so we allow them to express themselves in very creative ways. And that we don't have to try very hard or encourage them very, very hard to get them to do that. They have all different ways that they express themselves. My oldest son is an incredible musician.
You've told me that. I would love to hear him play.
Yes, he's just incredible. So he has a room dedicated to instruments, and that's his thing, and that's what he loves. And then
that's so great.
Our middle 3 are Academy Award-winning somethings.
They're stars waiting to happen.
They are in training, and they express themselves through bands. They love to write and sing. And so encouraging them in that, and just allowing them to have the freedom to express themselves in any way that they seem fit is something that we have just found so critical for their development. And then our 3-year-old, who we don't know what he's going to do yet, but he's just fun.
He's just really cute.
Oh my gosh, is he
He's always got a smile on his face, that kid. What a doll. Well, and I think too that you guys have given them such a beautiful place of, love and nurturing, and that kind of an environment is, of course, such a great way for people to be able to create, because it really, a lot of the big part about being creative is that somebody's building up your confidence, helping you be confident, because I think a confident artist is really, really a beautiful thing. It's like a force to be reckoned with, Absolutely. So I think that, kudos to you and Bob, because you guys have really, really given them a beautiful place to live and be loved. And so congratulations on being wonderful parents.
Thank you. Well, they are resilient and beautiful children. So just as much as they have gained from us, we have gained from them.
Yes. Really. So what's your next project that you're painting for right now?
I have a list of commissioned orders throughout 2020. I'm booked solid through the rest of this year.
Oh, that's great.
And it's very exciting. The opportunities have been incredible. It is just, I still pinch myself, Kirsti, like how, it's just amazing to me, the opportunities that have been presented to me through art. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that I was so afraid to put my art out there because I didn't feel like it was good enough.
Oh, there, stop the press. There it is right there, the thing about putting out art, right? Because we as creatives, we have the hardest time validating ourselves. And, we want the world to validate us, but so we stop ourselves. And so I'm really glad that you got over that hump. And that's a big thing for our listeners. I hope they're hearing you say that really loud and clear.
And really defining why I create has nothing to do with other people or their opinions. it is so nice if someone else enjoys it, but why I create, why I have to create is for me. And
Yes.
so being able to get my art out in the world, that's the only way for it to be seen, first of all.
Yes.
And once that happened, it was like just an explosion of opportunities, and things began to roll for me. The ball began to roll, and it was now it's unstoppable. And I'm so excited. I've gone from fearful to, I can't believe this is happening. This is so exciting.
Well, and the more you make art, the more you do it, the more you want to do it, and the better you get. I mean, I don't think there's too many people that work at their art or whatever their creativity is. When I say art, it could be being the greatest baker in the world. But if you keep working at it and with an intention, as you said before, I think that it gets better. And you have to be willing to be tough on yourself too.
And you've got to be willing to be bad at something at the beginning.
Yeah.
Very vulnerable. It takes a lot of vulnerability. No one wants to be a beginner, right?
Yes.
No one wants to be a beginner, but you have to start there. You have to start there, and you have to be willing to, every feeling has to be available to you. Nothing can be off limits. Vulnerability can feel scary.
Yes.
And putting yourself out there can feel scary, but it is worth it. That's the only way that you're going to get where you want to go, is if you put yourself out there and you're willing to feel all the things.
Well, and I think too that we forget, that sometimes we're given gifts, and I feel bad for people that shove their gifts their whole life and they never get to it or maybe they never get to it ever in life. They don't get it to their gift in any way, shape, or form till much later in their life. And I always try to encourage people, you can do something with the gifts and talents you've been given, even if you just do a little bit every day. You don't have to turn your life upside down and, move to Nashville to try to be a songwriter, that kind of thing. You can do whatever you want to do right where you're at.
Absolutely.
What changes in your life is how you use your time in regards to your gift, and if you put some time in. So we have a few more minutes left. I wanted to ask you a couple more things.
Sure.
What is your power word?
Well, I have several different power words, but my word for this year, for 2020, is light.
All right.
The reason I chose light was for several reasons. One, I want to always look for the light in the situation that I'm in, because I feel like even if there's like a duality of thought, even if there's a situation that's difficult and tough, there's always light to be found within the situation.
Right.
And it also reminds me to lighten up just a little bit.
I like that. You get a little bit of levity going there.
Yeah, just a little bit. So that's my power word. I think light, and during this time right now especially, I think light has been such an appropriate word. So
yes.
That's my power word.
Yes, that's so true. Now, here's my last question for you. Well, this is a sentence I would like you to finish.
Sure.
Okay. Today I am grateful for
perspective.
Oh, that's a cool word and a cool gratitude word. Why perspective?
It goes back to that duality of thought, that the idea that we can go through hard things, but also keep perspective about the situation, and know that and trust that things can get better, that they will get better, that there's always hope, and that there's always something that we can learn. And I think that's all about having perspective and not being so trapped in the idea that things can't get better. And so that is what I'm most thankful for today, is perspective.
Well, that is beautiful. And I'm so proud to know you and honored to have you as a guest. You've grown to be such a beautiful young woman, and I know you're inspiring to so many people. So thanks so much for being here with us today, Chelsey. And where can people find you online?
You can find me on my website is chelseatuckerart.com, and then my social handles are Chelsey Tucker Art. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram.
Well, we will certainly be checking in with you all the time and wishing you all the most amazing success that you can possibly have. Continue to spread your beautiful light and perspective all over the world. And we want to thank you. And thank you, Chelsey Tucker. We'll be right back.